Hi guys, this is going to be my most ambitious video so far. There's actually multiple parts to it, 6 different sections to it. None of them are particularly long, but I may have to record this in parts because the chance of me getting through them all without making a mistake is fairly low. So what we have here is Michael 4, but it could be any male poser character or any female poser character. And he has fiber mesh eyebrows. Now, fiber mesh is a technology in DAZ Studio for creating realistic looking hair and brows. We'll talk about that more in a moment. So this is Michael 4 with Jeremy 4 Elite Texture. And if you look at this profile here, you'll see that the brows look good, but you can see there's no depth to them. Now, if you compare to this, you can see actually they're not perfectly positioned because there's shadow down here on the cheeks, but you can see the profile of his face. You can see there's some depth and they just have a little bit more realism to them. Let me just do half and half so you can compare one to the other. Like that, yeah? So you can see there's just a bit more realism from one to the other here. And if you don't like that one, then how about let me go back to here. Oh, other side. If you don't like those eyebrows, which are kind of meant to look like that, how about these eyebrows or these eyebrows? That's the beauty of fiber mesh brows, that you can just add any other brows that you want to suit the character you're trying to build. This particular one, I think, has 38 different defaults. So let's have a look at DAZ Studio here. And we have Michael 8 with fiber mesh eyebrows. Not a very good looking character in my opinion, actually. But let's talk about the benefits and the disadvantages. So in DAZ Studio, these eyebrows are fitted either as morphs or as a geo shell or something like that. So they can form to the shape of the character. So no matter what the head size is, as his brows raise and fall, the eyebrows go with them. And we can't do that in Poser, but we can at least have eyebrows that look a bit more realistic. So in this tutorial, I'm going to be using supernatural brows. Supernatural brows are a set of brows from DAZ Studio that are designed for content creators to create their own brows to put with their commercial products. So I'm going to delete that character and we're going to start from scratch. So what I want to do is get those brows into Poser in such a way that I can use them on my Poser figures. So first of all, just double click to load the brows into the scene, and they're here. So let me just select those, and you can see here. And we're going to do nothing else. They've imported at the right height, or a good default height, and I'm going to export those now. And where am I going to export them to? Well, in this particular case, I've already got a folder full of brows that I've done. So I'm going to export them to a folder called Supernatural Brows. So this was the default brow. So I could just save this as default both. So I'll do that. So let's say brows both default. You can see that I've already done a lot of work earlier with brows. So brows both default. And now here, I'm going to make sure that I'm using the Poser export filter, which ensures that the brows come into Poser in the correct scale. I'm going to leave everything else just on its default. So I'm going to export that. So those brows now have been exported to Poser. So if I go to Poser and I have Michael here, I'm just going to delete those brows and I'm going to go to my main cam. I could import those brows just like that. So I'll do, I won't do centered, I'll just do 100% scale. And then I'm going to go to that folder. So what did I call it? Brows both default. I don't know of a way to export those brows. And now it's asking me for the texture library. So you can see here I pointed, let me go back to DAZ. this has got a texture on it. So if I go down to surfaces, open this up, hair 1, and then click on, say, base color and browse. See, it's using hair fibers diffuse 06 texture. So if I do browse, then that will take me to the texture where the textures are, and then I could just copy that across into Poser. As it happens, Poser's already pointing to that because I was testing the tutorial yesterday. So I'm looking for hair fibers diffuse 07. See, I can see that up in the top of the bar there. So I'll just point to hairs fiber diffuse 07, and now it wants diffuse 06. And there you go, they're loaded into the scene. And you can see there, they've loaded in just a little bit below the actual eyes. So I could move those up into place. But the reason we don't want to just import those as pairs is that we lose the ability to move them independently of each other, which is really important. One of the other disadvantages of bringing to Poser is that we lose all the morphs that were with the original. So if I go to DAZ Studio and I take these, you'll see here that there's absolutely tons of shaping morphs. I'm just going to make this a bit bigger. Loads of brow shapes here. Hopefully you can see that. And we don't get those shaping morphs when we take into Poser. Now, there is a way that there's 2 ways that we could deal with that. There's the one that I did, and then there's the one that I've never tried that in some ways would be more elegant, but in others could be bad. The elegant way is to export every single one of those brow shapes as a separate OBJ file, and then add them to this brow as morphs. So you'll have multiple morphs for this set of brows. But the problem with that is that it creates a much larger file. So supposing this brow's 30 meg, let's have a look, see how big it is actually. Okay, so that's both default 12 megs. So every morph that you add to that adds another 12 megs, and a little bit extra actually. So here there's however many styles there are here, 30 or 40 different styles perhaps. Shapes, where's the defaults? Preset styles here. 34 preset styles plus all of those shaping morphs. So it could very easily be that you would increase those eyebrows from 12 megs up to, half a gigabyte, which is more than you really want loading into a scene for one character's eyebrows. So I think that the better solution is to export them as one set of brows, one shape. So you just decide when you load what shape brows you want, and then you just load that. So for example, just to show you here in my hair, see I've got style 1, style 2 together individually, and then I've just done the ones that I thought looked good rather than having one pair of brows that has all of those morphs added on. Right, so we've got these. So why don't we just load them as a pair of brows? Well, I've already said it. You lose the ability to move them independently, which is really crucial. But also, because these brows are not designed for any figures that are outside of DAZ, they won't wrap around the head properly, and you'll need the ability. Supposing I scale these up. See, they scale in the width as well as the position between them, and that could be a problem. Suppose I wanted them to be bigger because he's just got a big face, but the width here is narrow. There's nothing I can do about that. So here's what I think you need to do. So we're going to need Blender or any 3D program. My program of choice is actually 3D Studio Max, but I chose Blender because it's free. Okay, so there's actually a whole bunch of programs that you're going to need for this tutorial. You're going to need DAZ Studio, obviously. You're going to need Supernatural Eyebrows or some similar eyebrow set. You're going to need Poser, Blender, Notepad Plus, and a photo editor. Now, the good news is only one of those is commercial, and that's Poser, and you already have that. So here's Blender. the latest version. This is a new scene and it's got that box in the middle. I'm just going to press delete and then I'm going to go import OBJ, wavefront OBJ, and then I'm going to go to my folder where I put them, which is my supernatural browse folder. I'm just going to copy that address, paste that into there. So this is where my geometries are. So we've got both browse, both default. That's what I exported earlier. And it's loading that into the scene now. Now it's very tiny because the poser scale is absolutely tiny. So what we're going to need to do is press / to zoom to the selection, and there you can see the eyebrows there. I'm just going to turn so as you can see them that way on. And here's the actual fiber mesh eyebrows. It's hard to see because they're so tiny, but these are basically long series of billboards, very, very narrow square polygons attached to each other with textures on. So what we need to do here is we need to export these as two separate eyebrows. So first thing we need to do is delete one eyebrow or the other. So remember we pressed / to zoom, and this is our motion thing to let us pivot around. Now we're going to press change up here from object mode to edit mode. And this is absolutely crucial. Press Z to go to wireframe mode. And it's over here. So we press Z to open this detector thing, selector, and then we go to wireframe. And now all we just do is draw a marquee line around the one that we don't want, which I'm going to do. Press delete and it gives you a choice of what you're deleting. I'm just going to choose vertices and everything's gone. Now, why did I go into wireframe mode? Because wireframe lets me see polygons behind other polygons. If I take this one, for example, if I select this and it's not in wireframe mode and I press delete, it'll only delete the stuff that's in the foreground. Anyway, so now I've deleted that one. I'm going to export this one. So I go export, wavefront object, and the same location as before. And we'll call this tutorial left, tutorial right, sorry, tutorial right. And we're going to export that. Now, I'm just going to press Control Z to go back. And I'm going to delete the other side. Vertices again. And now I'm just going to export that tutorial left. Really easy. It's time consuming more than anything, but I mean, even if you just did it with one set of eyebrows, that's really useful. So tutorial left. So tutorial. What? Tutorial left. Export wavefront OBJ. And that's all we need to do in Blender. It really is very easy. I don't like Blender at all, but you don't need to learn a lot to copy this. Okay, so now back to Poser. Now we're going to import those eyebrows again. We're going to go import wavefront OBJ, 100% scale, centered turned off, place on floor turned off. And what did we call them? We called them tutorial left. And that's coming up there. And same again, import tutorial right. Now let's go to our face cam, and you can see the eyebrows have come in below there. Now you will lose some expressiveness. You know, they won't curve and stuff like that. You could possibly find a way to do that, but that's more than the scope of this tutorial. And what we're going to do, we're just going to position these so that they're kind of where the other eyebrows were. Now, you're probably going to need to mess about with the Z depth. That's where you might want to use your multi-port camera. You could go 4, you could just go 2. So let's go, actually we'll do 3 ports. So we're going to do, this one is going to be a right-hand camera. Just Okay, this is, there we go. You have to select an object in the camera before you can change the camera zoom, which is kind of sucky. Right. Okay, there's the right-hand camera, so we can see that we need to adjust that Z depth. This is a top camera, which is actually the good one for us to see as we position that. You can see the brow there. I'm just going to move that so as it's a bit easier. And this is just the regular main camera down here. So we can see that from the front. That could have been a front camera, by the way, that would have worked fine as well. Or a face camera, that would have worked just fine. Right. So here, actually, I am going to change that to a face camera. Camera view, face camera. I could have achieved that by clicking face icon over here instead. And I'm just going to move that around until I can see that. Now, this is a little bit difficult because the character's already got eyebrows. So I'm going to eyeball it a little bit here in the Y direction. Now I'm going to move in the Z direction just to put that close to his skull. Now, this is where you can run into problems because each character's skull shape and proportions are different. So the eyebrows quite probably won't perfectly fit. That's actually a pretty good fit because it's Michael to Michael. Even though it's Michael 8 and Michael 4, they still have some similarities in their base kind of appearance. But anyway, look, so you can see that's up here. It's quite tight to the skull. That's kind of where that eyebrow is. Now, what I would do here, and that looks pretty good there, what I would do here is I'd take a note of these settings so that I know what transformations I did. Fortunately, it's remembered the scale when I exported from DAZ Studio, so I've not had to rescale it here. So all I need to do is move the other one in the Y direction, 120.120 or 0.12, and the Z direction minus 0.034. So Z, I'm just writing these down, minus 0.034. So now I'm just going to go to the other eyebrow, and that was minus 0.034. Not all characters are completely symmetrical, but they usually are. And Y was 0.120. So that's an upwards one, 0.12 actually would accomplish the same. And there you go, it's gone straight on top of the other eyebrow. So let's go back to our single view now. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is open up my hierarchy editor, which I have here. So there's Michael, and here's the two eyebrows. So I'm just going to drag these two. Actually, do I need to? I'm going to do. I can't remember the way that prop export's going to work. So I'm just going to drag those two onto the head, so that they're now children of the head. What that means is that anywhere I move the head, the eyebrows go with it. But I need to export them now. So I'm going to go to my props, and here's my folder I'm going to save them in. You could save them in a folder of your creation. You could create a new folder down here, or you could navigate to an existing folder. And all I'm going to do plus to save them to the library. And we'll just call this tutorial browse. But this is the really important bit. Usually, if you have one prop selected that's the child of another object, if you just save that on its own, it will give you a chance to save it as a smart prop. But you can't save multiple props at once as smart props. But that's what we need to do. So we're going to do select subset, and then we're going to holding control down, press this, sorry, not control, alt, press this little triangle to open up, go down to head, and somewhere down here, tutorial left and tutorial right. So what we're doing is we're saying we only want to save these two objects. I'm going to click OK. There's the name. It's saving in that folder. And I click OK, and it saves. And it for some reason it doesn't refresh straight away when you do that, but there they are. Now, all we're going to do now is a little bit of trickery, if you want to call it that. We're going to take that tutorial browse and we're going to edit the pose file. So I'm just going to do right click on here, show in Explorer, and it's going to open up Explorer here. So it's created three files here. There's the PNG, which is the library image, so you know what you're clicking on. There's an XMP, which is a data file that you don't need. That's can't remember when that was made, Poser 8 or 9 or something. The idea was that you could put metadata in there so that it would be easier to search. So you could put, you know, eyebrows or micro figures or whatever in there, but nobody that I know of ever used it. So I'm actually just going to delete that because it's just wasting space. And here's the important bit, the PP2. Now this is where you're going to need to have installed Notepad++ or a text editor of your own choosing, but I find Notepad++ is like a programmer's text editor, and you'll see what I mean. So tutorial browse, I'm going to right click, open with Notepad++. So here's the file here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Control F, which brings up the search, and I'm going to look for parent. There's 4 instances of parent in this file, 2 for each of the browse, and find next. And you'll see here parent universe, and you can see why this is a programming text editor. See how it does the indents and everything, makes it a lot easier to read. So what we have here is the parent. It shows where the eyebrows parent to. So remember I mentioned smart parenting, so that the eyebrows will move with the head. So at the moment, because we saved 2 props simultaneously, it defaults the parent to the universe. So what we want to do is change that to smart parent space colon head 1, I think it is. Let me just look it up. I've got a copy of it here. Oh, right, sorry, I put the colon in the wrong place. So I'm just going to copy from one that I did earlier. So it's smart parent space head colon 1. Okay, smart parent space head colon 1. So now do the find the next. I don't need that one. I'm pointing at the screens if you can see. And here's the other one. So the 2 that say parent universe, I'm going to change. And now I'm going to replace that with smart parent head colon 1. And then all I'm going to do is save that file. So that's all I've just done is edited the PP2 or prop file. You can also edit character files or hair files or whatever. So now I have my tutorial browse, but the underlying file that refers to is now done to smart parent those eyebrows. So if I delete those 2 eyebrows now, and now I can double click on this library file. So here I go, click, and you'll see 1 brow, 2 brows. So they've both loaded into the scene. And if you look at the hierarchy window, you'll see that they've both loaded in as children of head. So they're both in the right place. And you can tell that because now when I take the head and twist it, the brows go with it. And you can see that's actually really quite a good fit. You know, I could do better, but to be honest, for most of the distance renders you're going to do, I mean, even at this distance, that looks good. Okay, now, there's one final bit. You'll notice that you can see, I'm just going to delete that. You can see Michael's eyebrows that are built into the texture, and that really ruins the effect. So what you want to do is create a texture that has no eyebrows, and I'll just quickly show you that. Even in DAZ, you have multiple textures, some with brows and some without, because this is becoming so popular. So I'll just load in a Jeremy that has no eyebrows that I created earlier. Okay, and there's the eyebrows are gone. So now when I put those eyebrows in that I made earlier, you see they're much more realistic looking. So how do we do that? Well, ideally you've got Photoshop, but if you don't have Photoshop, then you use some other program. So I think GIMP is a free photo editor that has the same feature. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to Material. I'm just going to go back to the original Michael texture, Jeremy texture, so you can see from the very beginning. Sorry, I won't be a second. I'm just loading it. I've got loads of levels to go through to find it. Elite textures, elite characters, materials, elite. Jeremy, matte, no ambient occlusion. There you go. So this is the original texture again now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the material room. I'm going to just click on this on here to pick up his face texture. See up here, skin face shows that I selected it. Just to confirm, if I click down here on his arm, that texture changes to skin arm. So skin face, and I'm going to choose color texture. Open it up, and you'll see there the name of the texture when I click on that. And I'm going to click browse to find out where the texture is. And just to make it easier, I'm going to copy that path. And here's the Jeremy texture down here. Then I'm going to go, in this case, I'm going to go into Photoshop, and I'm going to use that same path to load the Jeremy texture. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a combination of heal and clone. So clone copies one bit of the image to somewhere else, and heal kind of repairs spots and blemishes. So we'll start off with clone. So I click clone. I have to hold down Alt in Photoshop, and this selects where I'm going to be cloning from. Now, this character is really annoying because it's got these frown lines in, which you shouldn't build in frown lines into textures, because if you don't want your texture to look frowny, then they've got frowns in. Had I made this texture, I would have edited those out. But anyway, I'm going to click up here with the Alt button pressed. That sets the source for the clone. So now when I click down here, so long as I keep the mouse button pressed, that source is going to be transferred down to here. That's because the aligned option is set. But if I turn that off, actually no, I'm going to leave that on, because what that means is that this bit will go to here. When I move to here, that bit here will move to here. If I click aligned off, then it would keep on resetting. From this bit would go to here, this bit would go, the same bit would go to here, and it becomes messy. Right, anyway, so now I'm just going to clone that across to here. I'm actually keeping the mouse button pressed down for now. There are times that you might not want to do that. See, here we've got these bloody frown lines. So now I'm going to turn aligned off, and I'm going to set a new source, and I'm just going to, there you go. So obviously that's not a great job. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to go to my healing brush tool, not spot healing, and I'm going to set my source as some bit of texture that looks similar in skin granularity to the bit we're trying to go to. So again, I'm going to go up here, and again you have the aligned option here. So, and now I'm just going to choose a nice big brush, and I'm just going to draw over that, and it's just going to kind of blend that in. So I draw, let go, draw, let go, draw, let go, draw, let go. The reason I'm letting go is because it resets the draw. If you do a long line, I'll just demonstrate. If I do a long line all the way from here without letting go, it treats that whole area as something that needs to be processed in one go, and it basically processes it differently to if you do that area in small blodges like this. So just imagine that I took my time on that just to blend that in a lot better than I'm doing, okay? And I've taken my time, and the end result is that you get a texture something like this. See, he's got no brows. It's not perfect. I could still spend more trouble on that. And now all I need to do is go into my character, change this texture for the one with no brows. And I've saved this character so that anytime I want to reload it now, I can use the one with no brows. You could either save it as a material or a character with the material applied. The choice is yours. And now when you render that, you get a nice character with eyebrows. And again, as I say, in DAZ Studio, what you could do is apply each of these presets, then save, export, go through that process. Another preset, export, go through that process, and do that for all the eyebrow shapes that you like the look of. And then what you'll end up with, if I can just finish by showing you this, is a library of brows that you can use in Poser that use fibremesh. Actually, I wonder if I can zoom in and show you fibremesh better on this character than I could in Blender. No, it's very, very fine, but it's let me change the what are we on, face camera? So face camera, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the focal length, which is a way of getting in closer without moving the camera closer. Okay, so you can see there that they are just a series of flat billboards connected. If I show you hidden line, that might be a bit easier. See that? So it's a really clever alternative. You think when you hear fiber mesh that it must be like a hair room where it's cylinders of hair, but in actual fact it's not. It's just a much more advanced version of transmapped billboard hair, which is what we've been used to for decades. But because they use much finer meshes, it gives you a much better character. But one of the problems is with fiber mesh is that because it uses transparency does slow your renders down. Not a massive amount, but when transparency starts interacting, that can be when it gets slow. But as you see, that really rendered quite quickly. I will just say one other thing. You could also build a library of materials that you could apply, just as they probably did in the original. Let's have a look at the original. I'm certain there's going to be colors in there as well. Yeah, there we go, materials. So he's got eye, but you might just want to go with 3D Delight, and you can change to these different colors here, and you can create your own color palette as well, which I've actually done with some, but I don't do with these. I really ought to actually, but I just use strand hair shaders, which is just a product I bought from someone else, and that seems to work fine. Okay, guys, a little bit complicated, but not massively time consuming. I hope that you find that useful, and you have a fantastic day.